want to return to this later, we'll post it to our YouTube channel and make sure to follow up with the link and the slides. We'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Chris Fabian, and while the slide depicts here our COVID-19 response plan, I think what will be special and interesting about this session today is that we're going to be talking about how programs, program data, service level data are really becoming so useful and applicable for COVID response, for our approach to increasing equity in communities, to a thoughtful response to contemplating defunding the police and what that might look like. We're constantly struck by the fact that all of these discussions have a common intersection, and that is, what are the programs that we provide, how are resources being allocated to those programs, and how can we use programmatic discussions as a vehicle for change? And that's been central to our work for a decade, from priority-based budgeting to program-based business intelligence. With me today, I'm really excited to have both Liz Johnston and Eric Keck. Liz will have the primary focus of our presentation today after I talk a little bit about introducing the issue of how to use programs to approach many of these crucial challenges that we're facing. Liz is going to introduce and walk us through how to create this programmatic data and what we're especially excited about, which is cohort style approaches to developing programmatic data, cost of programs, impact of programs, and so on. Liz leads so many things in ResourceX, from actual client support, everybody from Addison, Texas, near where she lives, to Kansas City, Missouri, and everywhere in between. But also Liz is part of the team with Santina from our organization who created this approach to cohort style data creation that has really been something that we feel is really needed, and we're excited to talk about today. So thanks, Liz, for being with us, and I'll pass it over to you here in just a moment. Eric Keck is also on the line. Many of you probably know Eric, whether you ran into him at ICMA, the Senior Executive Institute. He's been city manager in multiple communities, and twice as city manager in 2 different cities implemented priority-based budgeting. And we were so fortunate enough to have Eric come and join our team in 2018. Eric leads what we call client success, which is our approach of making sure that people are not only creating their data in a quality way, but also taking that data, being able to draw out insight from that data and actually take action. So Eric will have the final part, the final voice of our presentation today. And Eric, thanks so much for joining us as well. As I get started, I thought I would kind of introduce how we're using programmatic data with a host of communities these days, starting with addressing revenue shortfalls that were created from our response to the COVID pandemic. As we see in so many organizations right now, the revenue shortfall born from economic impact of having to shut down society has caused immediate and urgent problems. And for all of our organizations, we've tried to respond to them as best as possible, mostly with our most accessible solutions coming from line item data. When we talk about hiring freezes or deferring capital projects or even furloughs, those have been the types of solutions we've had to utilize for lack of having discussions around programs and services. So they have definitely been what is most required. Our worry on the COVID front is that if there is, you see continued news about more infections, and we wonder what the impact of that might be if there is any further shelter-in-place policies that we might need to adopt come fall or winter, even next spring. Many scenarios talking about repeated V recoveries. The issue is that as we turn to our line item data for our best overall solutions to the revenue shortfall, there comes a time when we likely are exhausted. We don't have any more of these type of solutions to use. And at that point, the next wave of decisions that we'll have to make will certainly involve program and service level choices, including what services that we still have to provide. How do we prioritize those programs and make sure that they have the resources they need to be successful? At a program level, what programs do we offer that we could actually put pause on or temporarily suspend? We need program level data to get there. What programs can we actually find a partner in our community to help us provide a benefit or an outcome to our citizens, whether that's a nonprofit or a private sector, in which programs can actually generate revenue still. If we can recenter the conversation around programs and services, we can get to solutions that were maybe not so obvious from our line item data. We moved from COVID to what is a very hot topic of the day, and for many of you who have joined us from the ICMA Equity Series, part and parcel with that discussion was what it means to consider this idea of defunding the police or reimagining police services. And our perspective is, if you are contemplating, or if you're elected officials or leadership or citizens are engaging in this type of discussion, one, we are so curious from what programs are we actually considering reducing resource allocation. Again, having that program and service level data is going to be imperative for this discussion overall. And then also, as you consider where we're freeing up resources, towards what programs and towards what outcomes are you actually reallocating resources? And again, getting to that program level is key to have a thoughtful and appropriate discussion for defunding the police overall. And then this is straight from our ICMA webinar series, but a summary of that entire presentation with San Antonio and Denver. For those of us who are really thinking long-term about an impact on achieving equity in our community, we have City and County of Denver, Colorado, Tacoma, Washington, who are very focused on creating a result and defining it and really striving for this kind of outcome in their community. But to ensure that these aren't empty promises, how do we refocus on every single program we provide and really think through how at a program level can we increase equity? How can we change something as mundane as snow removal? Snow removal doesn't seem to fit in the equity discussion, but in the City and County of Denver it did. When you focus on a program and you look for the opportunity, we can start to consider maybe if they addressed shoveling, making sure that certain walkways are accessible to access a bus station or access a grocery store, make sure that people can walk or bike to work. That is a way that we can increase equity even for something like snow removal. Or the impound lot. City and County of Denver thinking through how their fee structure, even in a time when they need more revenues to be coming into the city, they're rethinking if and how much to charge for getting your vehicle out of the impound lot, if that is a barrier for people having this mode of transportation in order to get to their jobs overall. So here again, we see that programs are a vehicle for the type of change that we want to create, whether we're trying to address a revenue shortfall and trying to make the best service level choices, trying to address defunding the police, or even increasing equity. But we could even broaden this out to other policy issues that are sure to come, economic vitality, global climate change, and so on and so forth. I want to make a quick demonstration of what we are talking about down kind of in the nitty gritty. This is one of our organizations, and this slide is meant to be terribly overwhelming, that if we only had line item data, while line items are stock full of insight to some people, maybe in accounting and finance, when it comes to looking at this data and trying to make it useful for tackling discussions about how to address the revenue shortfall or how to tackle defunding the police, it leaves something to be desired. It's like a forest from the trees kind of situation. Somewhere in here, I might be able to discern where I can save money, but if I'm only given line item data, I have to focus my discussion on line items. Where would I cut? Is it uniforms? Is it travel and training? Is it gas, oil, and lube, or the health savings account? It's very difficult to understand where I might change any of these particular line items. Line items aren't always the best jumping off platform to communicate how we might want to make positive change. But if I told you this exact same bit of line item data could actually be seen differently when wrapped around the programs offered by this department, all of a sudden we are all given a new level playing field, a new level of understanding. That was a facilities department that we were just looking at. And when we talk about the programs offered from that facility department, we can talk about custodial or janitorial services or facility upkeep, repair, and maintenance. We can drill into custodial if we wanted to and actually see all of those line items reorganized in terms of the people it takes to provide janitorial services and the non-personnel costs involved in delivering this service. But now we have a totally new perspective, and now we can really start to achieve some things. And this is the work that we try to do. It opens up dialogue around maybe we can provide this program more efficiently. If more people are working from home, we have the opportunity to reduce the level of service, perhaps because we have less facilities to clean. There might be certain elements of the service that need to increase, that need more resources, because for those who are coming back to work, our workplaces need to be extremely sanitary to reduce the chance of spreading infection. Perhaps there's an opportunity to consider how we provide this program regionally and among many different jurisdictions in a regional insourcing option. And our whole point being in the work that we're going to describe to you in program-based business intelligence is that if given the data, would you rather start with line item data, or can we quickly get you to a new elevation to see things differently? We have a way to bring this discussion to a whole new level using program data. I'll end with just a couple of snapshots. These days we're working with, this is an organization who used their program data. First, they quantified the fact that they were looking at about, the smaller organization, $1 million budget shortfall, revenue shortfall. They were able to quickly, actually within a few weeks period of time, develop a program inventory and the cost of those programs and the insights for taking action for those programs to develop $3.2 million worth of actionable opportunities, whether it's revenue reallocation, or revenue generation, or resource reallocation. This is exactly what we're trying to get you to. And then for the police discussions that are taking place right now, we have one of our current organizations, the City of Salem, Oregon, who heading into that discussion had already built some of their program data, and they are bringing it to bear to say, you know, whether we're talking about patrol and different ways that we can provide this particular program, what does it actually cost us? What are the FTE counts? If we defund this program, what is the objective, and where might we reallocate some of those resources? If we change the way that we approach dispatch or the way that people call in, that maybe they're not sending out patrol officers to every situation, but that they are actually able to use dispatch as a way to send different types of professional resources. Again, getting down to that program and service level is allowing them to shift the conversation from just defunding the department to actionable program direction. And that's where we're trying to get you to. So I'm going to pause my presentation here and turn it over to Liz, who's going to describe how we actually define programs, put a cost around them, and do this rapidly in order to get you to a place where you can tackle these discussions as well.
Great, thank you, Chris. I'll get my screen up and running. There we go. Okay, thank you everyone for being here today. All of the exciting and interesting ways to utilize your PBBi data that Chris outlined, starts with the effort from you and your organizations to create the data. So we are going to talk through the process that we have put together to help make this as efficient and as easy to manage as we can over the period of 2 months to get you from your line item data to programmatic data where you can take action. We, Santina, my colleague, who is also on the line, and I put together this approach utilizing coursework where we work together in groups. Every single course that we will go through includes a similar format, so that if you decide to go from inventory to attributes versus going from inventory to scoring, you still have the same expectation for how the classes are going to run. And what we always will do is an introductory exercise to make sure that you all know each other and know us and kind of have an understanding of what we're hoping to accomplish. We will teach or facilitate a curriculum overview. We will get everybody into a breakout session where there's a smaller ratio of clients to resource X facilitators. We can get into the tools and work towards making progress on your implementation. Those insights that Chris referred to, and we'll talk about a little bit more in a few slides, will become a part of every single class, so that every single class ends with some actionable data that you could take away and begin having conversations and put to work. We will also facilitate some group discussions and reflections. We feel like this is really important as you all become the teachers of this approach, whether we are working with you as the teachers of this or we are working with your entire organization. The group discussion and reflection really helps to retain and put to work everything that you've learned. We've also created all of our materials through a shared Google workbook. What this does is it increases the collaboration between you and us, but also between you and your organization. So that's just wanted to put out the general format. As we think about the specifics of each class, and there are 4 classes and 1 open session. PBBi prep and program inventory happen in 1 week, and cost allocation and attributes happen in another. It's just your choice on which classes you want to take. We do require PBI prep and program inventory first, because you need that as your basis for moving on to others. Your subscription to this cohort is for 2 months. So when I say that PBBi prep and program inventory happen in 1 week and cost allocation and attributes happen in another, do not feel like you have to bite that off in 2 weeks. You have 8 weeks to spread this out for either your participation or that of your organization. But what we really want to do with the beginning with PBBi prep is to give you the foundation for sharing this with your organization. So we will work towards talking about the charter, the communication plan, and the implementation schedule. We will then move into inventory, which is the backbone of your PBBi implementation. This is what you do. These are the services that you provide to your community or that you need to help internally run your organization. Then that may be the level at which you wish to engage. You want the program inventory, and you can then apply insights to that. However, you can progress on and either choose a path towards cost allocation or a path towards attributes or towards both. And that is the flexible nature of this cohort, that you get to choose your own adventure. With the cost allocation, we will work towards actually allocating line items during that, that course, as well as in the attributes, we will go through the scoring process. As I said before, all of these cohort courses will result in insight generation for your programs. Those happen in alternating weeks. Every single Friday, we will have an open session where you can come and talk with us about any issues that are coming up. If you want to practice talking about PBB, this is a great place to do that. Also, getting your budget data uploaded. We will have a specific breakout room every Friday to help assist with getting the budget information into the tools. So that is the highest level overview of what to expect. I am going to dive into a little bit more of the specifics for each course, but certainly not exhaustive in what you may want to know. So please don't hesitate to follow up. But with this PBBi prep, as one of our cohort participants said, this was what he really needed because it made him stop and take a breath and really think through what he wanted from this. And that is exactly what we hope to accomplish, is to help you think through what PBBi is, what it's going to deliver, how you're going to communicate that, and in what timeline. So we will work with you to create your project charter. And I'm going to show you that's your project charter, your communication plan, and your implementation schedule. This will be something that you all will get to customize for each of your particular organizations, but we will be here to, one, provide you with a framework that you can use, and also to help guide you and give you our recommendations and best practices as you move forward. So those are the deliverables from the first cohort, and this one is required that you attend it first, so that's prep course. The second that we do recommend goes in sequential order, because there's not much you can do with costing and scoring without your programs, is the program inventory. This is the, I said backbone, it is also the foundation. These are how you are going to begin to communicate differently. You will begin to communicate at a programmatic level, and we sometimes talk about it as learning the programmatic language. So this will be something where you can communicate not only within your department for what it is that you offer and do, but oftentimes increasing that understanding and communication holistically through your organization, and then even expanding outwards towards your elected officials and your community at large. So giving you that shared language that everybody can understand and interact with. In this course, we will help identify and define programs. We will help with the right questions to ask and at what level you should be identifying those programs in order to best communicate this. But when we talk about programs, this is telling your story, whether it's your department story, your organization's story. This is what we build that narrative on. To give you a glimpse of what it looks like in the tools, you will build a program inventory in a web-based software, online PBB, and this is what it looks like in the tools. So you will have a program and a description that will be aligned with your department, and then identified as something that serves the community or something that serves the organization. As Chris showed, you can flip, once you have allocated your costs, you can flip the view to show the total program cost. And as you see, these are multicolored. They have been associated with opportunities that this particular department could take action on. You will also receive a deliverable in what we call our present site. So whether you are a costing cohort participant or an attribute evaluation cohort participant, or both, you will have an opportunity to have this deliverable of our present site. And what this does is it helps to illustrate and visualize your budget in a different way. So like we said, you have one level of understanding with line items. You have a second level of understanding with programs. And this is another level of understanding because it really does help to put your programs into a visually pleasing and visually understandable format. So each of the boxes on one of these present sites, the size and shape reflects the amount of the budget that has been allocated to that program. And the shade of the boxes reflects different things depending on if we're looking at the cost only version or the attribute evaluation. So there are different meanings to the shading depending on how you are using that information. But each of you will walk away. If you stopped here, you would have your program inventory and insights. If you continue on into costing and attribute evaluation, you will have this programmatic present site. So as we take the step into the next levels, your first stop might be cost allocations. This is allocating all of your resources to the programs that you have identified. So you will allocate your personnel time in percentage of time spent on programs. This is often a really great opportunity to begin those discussions on you understanding where you're spending your time, but also getting a clear understanding of where your staff is spending their time, and maybe being able to reassess or reevaluate where you want people and that resource being spent. You will also have the opportunity to allocate your non-personnel and revenue, and we allocate those by dollar amount associated with each program. In this class, you will actually get practice in allocating both time and non-personnel. We will walk you through our best practices and then also help you with how to be most efficient with this. The caveat to this is prior to attending cost allocation, you do need to have attended prep course and inventory, and you will have needed to come to a Friday session to get your budget data uploaded, or worked with us via our Slack communications to get that in so that you have those line items to allocate. Again, in looking at the tools and how this is reflected in our online PBBi software, you'll see at the top that we have the programs listed out up here, and you can see the breakout of allocations, all personnel, revenue, and non-personnel. So you know what components make up the total cost of this program. In allocating, you will see we interact with this nesting bar system. So all of your non-personnel line items in this example will be listed out in your department, and you will have an opportunity to filter those line items in a way that makes the most sense to you. You click on those bars and you'll be able to allocate the dollar amount utilizing this what I call costing, costing box. I can't think of what I was gonna say, but you will be able to interact and allocate your dollar amounts there. You will also be, again, allocating personnel based on percentage of time spent. So this is just a helpful tool that we offer to help you determine those percentages. But all of the interaction will happen in this web-based software where you will just simply log in. You do not need to download anything. You log in and begin your work and can enter all of the information into this system. Once you have done that, not only will you have that total program cost view, like what we have in the top right corner, but you will have the ability to access our analysis tools, our resource alignment diagnostic tools, or RAD tools, where you'll be able to see the breakdown of programs, what other departments are contributing to a program, what positions, what costs, what divisions, what funds. You'll be able to view all of that information as it relates back to your program. Moving on to the fourth course, this is our program attributes. These are 5 areas that we think help to better describe your programs. So mandate, cost recovery, population served, demand, and reliance are the different attributes that we recommend that you use. During this course, you will be able to review and understand what these attributes are and what they mean. We have a basic set of definitions associated with each one of these. However, not every organization is the same, and there may be some specifics that you would like to attribute to your attributes. So we will make sure that we review the definitions to make sure they fit your organization and serve the purposes you need them to serve. You will also have the opportunity to add one additional custom attribute. So in some of the examples that Chris showed earlier, we have several organizations who have added a custom attribute of equity or vulnerable populations, things like that. There may be something that you would like to know about every single program in your inventory, and this is the opportunity for you to create that data layer and apply it across your entire organization. What that looks like, again, this is the present site. So in the present site, I said the shading means different things in different views. Here we have, of course, the budget size represented in the size and shape of the box. And the darker the shade, the more in alignment that program is with that particular attribute. So you can see population served is the attribute selected here. So the darker the purple, the more of the community that is being served. The lighter the purple, the less of the overall population. Again, talking about the resource alignment diagnostic or analysis tools, here you can go in and filter all of your programs based on their alignment to those attributes. So you can go in and what we call our policy questions. These are just helpful places to begin discussions. So you can see we have selected all the filter where all programs that are internally mandated or self-mandated and also are in lower relevance would be pulled up so that you could view based on something that maybe is not as highly mandated and you could consider another way to offer that service. That filter will pull up all of the associated programs so that you can begin to think about reallocations, think about efficiencies, and think about all of that. Which brings me to the insights. The insights are going to be consistently applied throughout this cohort. So you will have the opportunity to add insights at every single level of your cohort process. We have tied these insights traditionally, historically, back to this blueprint for action. We had always focused this blueprint for action on 3 to 5 years down the road. When we think about that, we think about what, if you had new needs, where would those resources come from? We have 2 different levers that we typically like to pull. The first lever would be to free up and reallocate resources. The second lever would be to generate new revenue. So through each of those levers, there are other options: sourcing, efficiencies, service levels. On the generate new revenue side, fees and charges, looking for grants, and of course, taxes and rates if you have to consider that. However, we're now thinking more along the lines of 3 to 5 months. Things have changed so rapidly across the country, across North America, that we need to begin to think more short-term, but still with that long-term lens. So we've taken a lot of the 3 to 5 years down the road and tried to make sure that the definitions of all of those opportunities reflect the short-term lens as well. So the insights that you can apply to each of your programs: 1, status quo. This is how we need to offer this program. It needs to stay the same. It cannot change. We have to be able to offer this program at this level. The service level increase. We might need to be offering this service at a higher level in order to more positively impact our community. Again, service level decrease, maybe something that we could reallocate resources away from. Looking at partnerships both internally and regionally. Looking at those programs that we either need to suspend due to circumstances within the year of 2020, or just thinking more long-term, we don't need to be doing this anymore. Looking for efficiencies, ways to operate programs, maybe with a technological advancement or something, or volunteers or something like that. And then cost recovery, fees or grants that could be directly applied back to that program. How we assign these attributes is again through many of the access points within the tools, but this one being the best way to illustrate it, is to look at the total program cost and apply the insights so that you can quickly review all of those programs that have an insight attached to it. You will also have access to PDF reports. These will also be tied to your insights if you have used that functionality. If you have not applied an insight, you will still have access to those PDF reports that will be the best overall summary of all of the data that you have built during your PBBi cohort experience. That was a lot of information. I'm going to sum it up in this one slide. We are going to help you create the data so that you can apply the insights and take action. All of the slides prior to this were just to help you see how our software assists you in this process. But at the highest level, we want to help you to have this programmatic data because we strongly believe that you will be able to identify opportunities at that level so that you can take action and more positively impact your community. The way that we have designed the cohort, there are 2 different options. One is that we will help you implement this organization-wide. Both of these options are for 2 months. In the organization-wide option, you will be able to send 3 users per course. Those 3 users can be different every time the course happens, but you will have 3 users attend at most so that we can make sure that we get as many organizations as can attend. We want to make sure that they have space. However, there is no limit on the number of people from your organization who can participate throughout the 2 months. On the super user side, you have that same 2-month class access. However, you will identify ahead of your first cohort who from your organization is going to participate, and those will be the same participants throughout that 2 months. So organization-wide, we work with you and any department users that you might want to have participate. On the super user side, we're really going to help you learn the process so that you can teach it to your organization. This is our rotating schedule. So this week we had cost allocation cohort yesterday. We will have our attribute scoring cohort tomorrow, followed by the open session on Friday. Next week, we'll be back with PBBi prep and program inventory. Once you are ready to get started, we will give you the link to the overall registration page. Here you can see all the upcoming dates so that you can determine what works best for your schedule, share it with your organization. But what we are really hoping to do is to provide the most amount of flexibility that we can, knowing that people are in different work circumstances right now, different than we've probably ever dealt with before. I have one final thing, and that is the slide that Chris shared with you, the quantify and solve. We have another set of tools that's called fiscal health. This is a forecasting and scenario planning tool. With your PBBi cohort subscription, you get 1 month of the fiscal health tool access for free. We do a fiscal health cohort 1 week out of every month. It is a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday session. You can do that anytime during your 2-month subscription. And again, we'll provide you with those registration links once you are signed up for the cohort. But this financial forecasting and scenario planning tool is a great way to quantify the problem, and then your PBBi will help you to solve that scenario. Thank you so much for listening to me. I know I covered an incredible amount of information. I hope that you will follow up with questions. Our next PBBi prep course is next week. Next Tuesday is the kickoff for that. And then the next fiscal health cohort will be the week of July 21st.
Thanks, Liz. I am going to transition the slides over to Eric Keck for some final words and discussion of how you can come on board. Eric?
Thank you, Chris.
Take it away.
Yep, so I'm going to talk about 2 things with you all today. But first and foremost, let me thank you all again for attending today. This is quite a bit of information to take in, and we're more than happy to share these slides and the material with you to help build further awareness. But I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the top reasons why you might want to join the cohort. And I can speak to this from personal experience, having been on the client side for a couple of times with implementation of the programmatic-based business intelligence methodology in the past. But the first thing that I will tell you is that we've learned through this quarantine that it is really, really important that people have the opportunity to learn in a group, learn from each other. And the design of the cohort is such that you'll have individuals from disparate organizations from across North America who can share common challenges and common stories, but learn together. But it also is important too for just your organization and those that might be attending from your organization to learn as a group as well, so that they can share what they heard after the courses and again, build stronger relationships there, as well as help to build your organization a stronger foundation in the concepts that we'll be going over. Secondarily, one of the major barriers that we've experienced in the past with the implementation of our methodology and tools has been time. No matter how you slice it though, you're going to be, as I always say, flying the airplane while you're still building it to create your programmatic-based business intelligence data. But the fact of the matter is, as Liz has enunciated today, there is no time, more in history probably, where people are looking for quick answers, looking for quick data to be able to help inform their decision making than now. And so as you've seen, the cohort really is designed in helping you to achieve programmatic-based business intelligence, costing, as well as basic program attribute insights in a 2-month period. That's so very rapid. Matter of fact, we've had some one-on-one clients be able to implement within a week, but the cohort really is designed to ensure that qualitatively your people are learning to be able to go back into your organization, to spread this methodology, and to influence the culture in a positive way for creating this particular methodology and tool set. Reason number 3, another major barrier that we've seen in the past has been cost. So a lot of organizations have come to us and really had a deep desire to implement, but not the ability to fund the implementation itself. And as we'll talk in a few minutes, we'll show you the difference between one-on-one, or what we call a traditional implementation, versus the cohort method. But this is again designed for speed and cost to be lowered in barriers for organizations. And then lastly, something that's really important to me, again, that I learned the hard way through implementing twice, and that is focus on culture, and focusing specifically on how can we help you for the long term? How can we set up your organization to not only create the data, but to use it, to take action on it, to look for continuous improvement. And these particular tenets will be taught as part of the PBBi cohort class in general. So Chris, next slide. So as we talk about costs, and as we talk about how this particular methodology might compare, be different than from one-on-ones, I'll draw your attention to the left-hand side of the slide. And as you can see, we've talked about the 2 different methods of implementation, whether it's organization-wide, where you have, again, the ability to send 3 individuals from your organization through various trainings, versus also the super user route. And so we've set this up for a couple of different reasons. Some people need additional time and attention and focus, and we were able to deliver that to your organization in the cohort style by allowing you for the all-department option. So if you look at cost, for you to implement complete PBBi through the all-department 2 months effort, total cost would be $30,000. If you want to go down the route where you send and identify 3 super users. Now these folks are going to be the individuals that are most likely able to do many different things, but first and foremost, lead your entire organization, have the credibility to be able to be understood and respected in your organization, have the bandwidth, the time, and the knowledge of your ERP systems, your financial data, have a general aptitude for understanding all the functions of your city, and third, have the ability to come back and communicate very strongly and teach others in your organization. You might decide to go the super user route. And if you do that route, you can see to implement inventory, costing, and scoring insights, that is $11,500 in total to implement. Now, if you look at the right-hand side of our slide here, you look at our traditional one-on-one. Traditional one-on-one, where we customize our approach to your organization, where we are customizing not only the approach, but the timeline. You can see that the cost differentiation is significant because we are, again, providing you with significant resources and time on our side. We're currently doing many one-on-one implementations for organizations and of various sizes, and these are the costs now that we are assessing to actually do that work. Wherein, again, you're getting similar training. I know I saw a question from Bruce Applegate, what are the differences in the training? The material is the same. The main difference is how we deliver it. Where if we're one-on-one, we're coming to you right now virtually because of the CDC recommendations for social distancing, but we are implementing and we are training everyone that an organization has brought forward. So for example, we just started Scottsdale, Arizona last week. We had 3 days of training wherein we trained roughly upwards to 75 people from their organization from disparate departments on this methodology for program inventory. And we'll do the same thing for scoring, and then the same thing for, costing, and the same thing for scoring in future months. So you can see the difference in the cost here. Again, the methodology, the training, very, very similar. The difference being cohort is designed to deliver in the 2-month period, very rapid, but also with quality to ensure that your organization gets off on the right foot. Customization side, if you want one-on-one, we still offer that, but again, the cost being different because we are applying more ResourceX staff to come and assist you with the customization and implementation of this methodology. So at this point, I would open up to anybody else who has more questions. I see there's a couple more in the chat here, but happy to answer any questions that you have. Please feel free to come off mute to ask your question as well, or place it into the chat box. But again, thank you for your interest today. Our interest is really is this. We want to be able to impact as many communities in the world as we can with this methodology. Mainly, again, from the standpoint that we as former government practitioners understand the stressors that you're dealing with today. And we've designed the cohort to help try to mitigate many of those while continuing to provide you with the methodology, the tools, and the best practices to be successful both in the short and the long term. So, questions? Chris, do we see any questions here?
Yeah, Bruce, great question on yours. The question I'm sure everybody else would want to know was cohort versus one-on-one. Are there any differences in the software access? And the software is the same on each path. The only difference perhaps is on the super users only. That is where Liz in her slides was describing the 2 paths, and I can pull up this slide, where if you were just using super user only, that's the more limited access, where we're training a group of 3 super users from your organization who have access. But in terms of functionality, it is also the same cohort style versus one-on-one. The only difference is in one-on-one, the support services for implementation and training are directly for your organization and your staff on your timeline, whereas in cohort, you're free for that 2-month period to attend the implementation classes, and you're in a shared experience, and that's what allows us to bring down the cost, because we can divide them up among several organizations going through at the exact same time. Liz, you had a question.
Yes.
Hopefully I didn't botch that.
No, you didn't botch it. I just wanted to point out your access to the software, whether you are super user or organization-wide, your organization will still be able to get users into the software. Just during the training, you guys, your super user approach, you would have 3 people going through the training. But throughout that 2 months, you may get trained on program inventories and choose to do that before you come back to a cohort session and get trained for allocations. And during that window, you can set up other users from your organization to have access to the tools. So it's not if you go the super user path, that doesn't limit you to those 3 people being the only people to interact in the tools. Others from your organization will have access to the tools. Just wanted to make sure we weren't limiting you there.
Thanks for that differentiation, Liz. That's very accurate. And I think the cohort, again, is really designed, you could have 3 super users, but again, one-on-one, we're dealing with organizations now that have 6, 7, 8 different super users. And so that, again, is one of those differentiations. And let me just add this too. Cohort has been designed for organizations to also kick the tires, peek in the windows, see how this works. And so if you just wanted to go and lay down a foundation of creating program inventory, you have an off-ramp. You could say, I'm only going to do inventory. So for that, you can see what that would be. 20,000 would be all departments, or 10,005 just for super user route. Some organizations may only want to do costing, and you can still do that in this particular role as well, because you will be trained to get insights at every level. We've had actually success in organizations as we've been implementing the traditional style, where they've been able to make insights just after creating a program inventory. You're going to be able to do that here. We've had other organizations that say, you know what, I don't want to do scoring, I just want costing only. You can do that here. And so this modularity, if you will, allows you to build upon that foundation and move from there to make insights at each level to help you, again, transform your organization.
Mike, Ansley, you had a question on program inventory, and it was just, I think you can come off mute and ask a question to the group if you'd like, but it was kind of the differentiation between what's too big for a program, what's too small. I think that's a classic discussion that we get into in the cohort style training. Well, in either one of the implementations, program inventory philosophy is core to how we would teach you to come up with the right level of program definition. I would say, having gone through this work in almost probably close to 200 organizations, it is very fascinating to see the diversity of, even take a police department. In my earlier slides, I was showing City of Salem data for police department information, and you can see how detailed they got down to, graffiti removal or photo traffic enforcement and community policing. It's really fascinating. And again, this is why it's been so useful to have this program level data to bring to bear for some of those thoughtful police discussions that are taking place. I think it's kind of like begin with the end in mind. Clearly, we do have some guidelines on what's too big, what's too small, but you might have a very good reason to define something as really small because you want to draw attention to it. You want to drive a conversation around a program that is very tiny, or vice versa. You might have a very good reason to have a program that's extremely large. I would simply say you've hit on something that's really important, and that's exactly why we offer the training on the program inventory side. But feel free to jump off mute if you had more to that question. Those are the main questions I had in chat. If anybody else had questions in chat or feels more comfortable to type them there, you can definitely do that. Or please feel free to just jump off mute and interject. I'm going to type Eric Keck's email address, my own, and Liz's, and you'll see our email addresses because we will also be following up with the slides and the recording. And if you want to have, it's been pretty typical for these sessions that we have some follow-up meetings if you want to bring in some more of your team, just kind of talk about, like Bruce was trying to get clarity on one-on-one versus cohort. If you want to have a follow-up and kind of discuss what each of those paths looks like specifically for you, definitely happy to do that. Oh, great question from Bruce. While the access to your trainings, the question is, if you choose cohort, how long do you have access to the software? The software is an annual subscription. The training courses are what are limited to the 2-month opportunities. So maximize as many classes as you can take within the 2 months. We open up your access to the software, but the idea is you would continue to have the software. It's an annual subscription. Great question. Cool. You guys, thank you for sticking around for the whole presentation. Oh, and Santina, great point. Thank you for chiming in. And Santina, please, if you want to jump off mute and maybe elaborate a little bit more on she mentioned the pre-recorded training videos. We're trying to make sure that you have every opportunity to have access to the content and the training, even through videos after the 2-month period of time, so you can keep going while you have software for the year.
I'll jump off, I think, and just share, we have a YouTube channel that is dedicated to the PBBi cohort. All of that entire channel will be shared with you so that you can access those materials whenever you are ready for them.
Yeah, and Bruce, within the tools itself, we also have a really informative how-to section that has some tutorials as well that are probably tied to what Liz is addressing today as well.
Well, everybody, just thank you very much for tuning in. As Eric Keck mentioned, our mission is to make sure that you're equipped with this data to support you, whether it's for handling COVID, whether it's handling the police discussions that are taking place, or any of the imperative discussions that involve changes to what programs you provide, and the way that you tackle resource allocation. As Eric mentioned, our conundrum heading into COVID was how do we provide something that is very rapid and also affordable, knowing those are two needs that are always present. And that's what made us so excited about the cohort approach, is it's truly a breakthrough. It doesn't mean you can't go one-on-one, and that's why we still have an approach that several communities take, because it's right for them. But it's especially meaningful to us to be able to present to you faster and more affordable. So we hope to continue the dialogue and the conversations. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and we will be following up with you as well with the slides and the recording. But with that, I will bring it to a close and just say thank you very much, and we look forward to talking again soon. Thanks, everybody.